I'm very proud of this legislation. I'm very proud of the members of my committee on both sides of the aisle. This legislation doesn't just belong to this committee at this time or to the majority party just at this time. This legislation has been worked on by many people on both sides of the aisle. When Mr. McKean was when the Republicans were in the majority, Mr. McKean was the subcommittee chair. He pushed hard for this legislation. And Mr. Kildee has spent many years on our committee working on behalf of higher education. And Mr. Hinojosa authored legislation along with Mr. Keene that made it through the House in the last session. Why has that been true? Why is this legislation so broadly supported? Because we all understand the importance of a well-educated American population. And we all understand the urgency of this moment. At no time in our history has America needed a better educated population than it needs today. And we understand the importance of a college education and what it means to America's families, what it means to young people as they start out in their careers, as they start out their families, and their ability to provide for themselves and to go to jobs that are interesting, that work for them, that make sense for them, and yet be able to have the skills so that they can continue in the American economic system. This legislation does all of those things. This legislation helps to make college more affordable, certainly helps to make it more accessible. And it's done that because of the agreements that we've reached on both sides of the aisle. Mr. McKean has pushed long and hard for increases in the Pell Grants and long and hard for accountability in this system and long and hard to make sure that the cost of college, that we had greater transparency, that we understood it better, that parents would be able to decipher it, students would be able to decipher it and understand it. This legislation improves this act with respect to all of those provisions of the law. I tried to recognize the contributions made by each member on our side of the aisle and the programs that they worked on to increase access to college for so many populations that haven't been given the full opportunity in the past, that will be able to take advantage of that opportunity. And finally, this legislation makes it more affordable for many students. It's in combination with what we did in the reconciliation bill, where we provided $20 billion in new resources for students by cutting the interest rates, by providing forgiveness for loans, by increasing the Pell Grants, and providing real-time tuition assistance for those who want to go into teaching. It's an important piece of legislation. It's important to the Congress. It's important to our nation. It's important to families and students who struggle mightily to figure out how they can finance an education. I think this is a big step in assuring that every qualified student should be able to afford college. They may have to borrow some money, but it's well worth that if they can achieve the college education, and I think it's going to make a major contribution to strengthening the American economy. This moment's in time legislation and authorization of the Higher Education Act. But for over 45 years, there's been a fixed star in increasing the opportunity for young people to go to college and increasing the wherewithal for families and students to afford a college education. And that was the senator from Massachusetts, who unfortunately is not able to be with us as we pass this conference report today in the House and in the Senate. But he's with us in great spirit. He called the other day to congratulate us with great enthusiasm. He wasn't convinced we were actually going to get it done, and he said he was quite excited that we did, and he was looking forward to the passage of this legislation. He has been a moving force for opportunity at all levels of society, but he, first and foremost, has understood the opportunity that education provides. Whether it's early childhood education, preschool education, elementary, secondary education, community colleges, four-year colleges, graduate schools, Senator Ted Kennedy has been a champion of making sure that those doors are open to everybody in this society. And this legislation, I think, honors that commitment that Senator Kennedy has had for so many years as he has continued to sit on the Education Committee in the United States Senate and pound out this legislation that's so important to America's families, to America's students, and to America's economy. And I would urge all of my colleagues to support this legislation. I thanked them earlier, but I want to thank all the members of the committee on both sides of the aisle. I want to thank Mr. McKean for his leadership on this issue, and certainly to all of the staff for their help, and happy birthday to Joe Novotny.